Listen to me. You keep looking outside for the answer. You keep waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect support system. But I need you to hear me loud and clear. Winning does not start out there. It starts inside you. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to hand you success. You got to wake up every single day and decide, I will win. See, most people want to win, but they don't want to prepare. They want the reward, but they don't want the grind. They want the spotlight, but they don't want the struggle in the dark. But winners are built differently. Winning starts when you take responsibility for your life. No more excuses. No more blaming your past, your environment, or your circumstances. You say you want to be great, then your habits better match your goals. You say you want success, then your discipline better be stronger than your distractions. Because the truth is, your mindset is either your greatest weapon or your biggest weakness. When you wake up tired, that's where winning starts. When you feel like quitting, that's where winning starts. When nobody believes in you, that's where winning starts. It's not about what you have. It's about what you do with what you have. You don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You need more hunger, more focus, more belief. Look in the mirror. That's your competition. That's your biggest enemy. That's also your greatest opportunity. Because once you conquer yourself, once you master your thoughts, once you control your habits, nobody can stop you. So stop waiting. Stop doubting. Stop doubting. Stop hesitating and stop building the winner that already exists inside of you. It is about building an unshakable internal conviction that no matter what happens around you, you have what it takes to rise, adapt, and ultimately succeed. Most people misunderstand self-belief as something you either have or you don't, like it's a fixed trait. But the truth is, self-belief is built, shaped, and strengthened over time through your thoughts, your actions, and how you respond to challenges from a young age. Many people are conditioned to doubt themselves. They hear words like you can't, so it's too hard. But people like us don't do that. And slowly, those voices become internalized. Over time, these external doubts transform into an inner voice that limits potential before it even has a chance to grow. That's why self-belief is not just important, it's foundational. Without it, even the most talented individual will hesitate, second guess, and hold back. With it, even someone with average ability can outperform expectations because they refuse to quit. Self-belief starts with how you see yourself when nobody else is watching. It's easy to feel confident when everything is going well, when people are supporting you, when results are showing, when progress is visible. But true self-belief reveals itself in moments of doubt, failure, and isolation. When things fall apart, when plans don't work, when effort doesn't immediately produce results, that's when your internal belief system is tested. Do you still trust yourself? Do you still move forward? Or do you shrink back and let uncertainty take control? The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not the absence of fear or doubt, but the ability to act in spite of it. Self-belief does not mean you never feel insecure. It means you don't let insecurity dictate your actions. It means you recognize the fear, acknowledge it, and still take the step forward. That step, repeated over time, becomes confidence. And that confidence, built on action rather than empty words, becomes self-belief. Another important aspect of self-belief is understanding that your current situation does not define your future. Too many people look at where they are today and assume that's where they'll always be. They measure their potential based on their current results instead of their capacity to grow. But self-belief challenges that mindset. It says, I may not be there yet, but I can get there. It shifts your focus from limitation to possibility. This shift is powerful because it changes how you approach challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to stop, you begin to see them as part of the process. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every failure becomes feedback. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what can I learn from this? That mindset alone separates those who remain stuck from those who continue to evolve. Self-belief also requires honesty with yourself. It's not about blindly thinking you're perfect or ignoring your weaknesses. In fact, real self-belief comes from acknowledging where you need to improve and still believing you have the ability to improve. It's a balance between confidence and humility. You recognize your flaws, but you don't let them define you. You work on them consistently, patiently, and deliberately. Consistency plays a major role in strengthening self-belief. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you reinforce the idea that you can trust yourself. If you say you're going to wake up early and you do it, that builds belief. If you say you're going to train, study, or work on your craft and you follow through, that builds belief. Over time, these small wins compound into a strong internal foundation. On the other hand, if you constantly break promises to yourself, you weaken that foundation. You start to doubt your own word, and that doubt spreads into other areas of your life. That's why discipline is closely tied to self-belief. Discipline is not just about productivity. It's about integrity with yourself. It's about proving through action that you are someone who follows through. And when you become that person, your confidence no longer depends on external validation. You don't need others to believe in you because you've already built that belief internally. External opinions can either support or challenge your self-belief, but they should never control it. People will have their views, their doubts, their criticism. Some will project their own fears onto you. Others may not understand your vision. If your belief depends on their approval, it will constantly fluctuate. But if your belief comes from within, it remains steady regardless of what others say. This doesn't mean you ignore feedback or isolate yourself from constructive criticism. It means you filter it. You take what helps you grow and discard what limits you. You remain open-minded but grounded. You listen, but you don't lose yourself in the noise. Visualization is another powerful tool in building self-belief. When you consistently picture yourself achieving your goals, overcoming challenges, and becoming the person you aspire to be, you begin to align your thoughts with that vision. Your mind starts to accept it as a possibility rather than a distant dream. This doesn't replace action, but it strengthens your mental readiness to take action. It prepares you to step into opportunities with confidence instead of hesitation. At the same time, self-belief is strengthened through experience. The more you step out of your comfort zone, the more evidence you gather that you are capable of handling difficult situations. Each time you face something challenging and get through it, your belief grows. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Avoiding challenges, on the other hand, weakens that muscle. It reinforces the idea that you're not capable, even if that's not true. One of the biggest enemies of self-belief is comparison. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you shift your focus away from your own journey. You start to feel inadequate because someone else is ahead, more skilled, or more successful. But what you don't see is their process, their struggles, their timeline. Self-belief requires you to stay in your lane, to focus on your own growth, and to understand that progress is personal. Everyone starts at a different point. Everyone moves at a different pace. What matters is not how you compare to others, but how you improve relative to who you were yesterday. When you adopt that mindset, you begin to appreciate your own progress instead of diminishing it. Another critical element is resilience. Self-belief is not just about starting strong. It's about continuing when things get tough. There will be moments when you fail, when you doubt yourself, when things don't go as planned. In those moments, your belief may shake, but it should not break. You remind yourself why you started. You reflect on how far you've come. And you keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. It's also important to understand that self-belief is not built overnight. It takes time, effort, and repetition. There will be days when you feel confident and days when you don't. The goal is not to eliminate doubt completely, but to reduce its power over your actions. You don't wait to feel ready, you act. You act, and through action, you become ready. Your environment can influence your self-belief as well. Surrounding yourself with people who support your growth, who challenge you in a positive way, and who believe in possibilities can reinforce your own belief. At the same time, you may need to distance yourself from negativity that constantly undermines your confidence. This doesn't mean cutting people off harshly, but being mindful of what you allow to shape your mindset. Self-talk is another factor that cannot be ignored. The way you speak to yourself matters. If your inner dialogue is constantly negative, critical, and limiting, it will erode your belief over time. But if you consciously shift that dialogue to be more constructive, encouraging, and solution-focused, you create a mental environment that supports growth. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means framing it in a way that empowers rather than discourages you. Ultimately, self-belief is a decision you make repeatedly. It's choosing to trust yourself even when results are not immediate. It's choosing to continue even when progress is slow. It's choosing to see potential where others see limitations. And most importantly, it's choosing to take action. Because belief without action remains theoretical. When you truly develop self-belief, it changes how you carry yourself, how you approach opportunities, and how you respond to setbacks. You become more willing to take risks, more resilient in the face of failure, and more focused on long-term growth. You stop waiting for permission and start creating your own path. And once that foundation is in place, everything else becomes possible. Taking full responsibility for your life is one of the most powerful decisions you can make, yet it is also one of the most difficult. It requires you to shift your mindset from blaming external factors to owning every outcome, every action, and every result in your life. This doesn't mean that everything that happens to you is your fault, but it does mean that how you respond to everything that happens is entirely within your control. Most people live in a cycle of excuses without even realizing it. When things go wrong, it's easy to point fingers at circumstances, at other people, at lack of opportunities, at bad timing, or even at luck. While some of these factors may be real and valid, constantly focusing on them creates a mindset where you give away your power. The moment you blame something outside of yourself as the reason you're not where you want to be, you also imply that the solution lies outside of you. And if the solution is outside of you, then you're stuck waiting. Taking responsibility flips that dynamic completely. It says, regardless of what happened, I'm in control of what I do next. That shift is where real growth begins. It moves you from a passive state where life is happening to you into an active state where you are shaping your life through your decisions and actions. This mindset requires honesty, brutal honesty. You have to be willing to look at your life as it is, not as you wish it were, and acknowledge your role and where you stand today. That can be uncomfortable. It can challenge your ego. It can force you to confront mistakes, poor decisions, missed opportunities, and habits that have held you back. But that discomfort is necessary because growth cannot happen without awareness. When you start taking responsibility, you stop asking questions like a why is this happening to me? And start asking what can I do about it? That simple change in perspective transforms problems into opportunities for action. It puts you in a position where you are constantly looking for solutions instead of dwelling on obstacles. Responsibility also means owning your choices. Every decision you make, no matter how small, contributes to the direction of your life. The way you spend your time, the people you surround yourself with, the habits you build, the risks you take or avoid, all these choices shape your outcomes. When you recognize this, you begin to approach decisions with more intention. You become more aware of the long-term impact of your actions instead of just focusing on short-term comfort. One of the biggest challenges in taking responsibility is letting go of the need to justify your current situation. It's natural to want to explain why things are the way they are. Maybe you didn't have the same opportunities as others. Maybe you faced challenges that made your path harder. Maybe you made mistakes that set you back. All of these things can be true, but staying attached to these explanations can keep you stuck. Responsibility doesn't ignore your past, but it refuses to be controlled by it. Instead of saying, this is why I can't, responsibility says, this is what I have, and this is what I will do with it. It shifts your focus from limitation to action. It acknowledges reality, but refuses to be defined by it. Another important aspect of responsibility is accountability. It's not enough to say you take responsibility. Your actions must reflect it. Accountability means holding yourself to a standard, even when no one else is watching. It means doing what needs to be done, even when it's difficult, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. It means following through on your commitments, not just when you feel motivated, but especially when you don't. This level of accountability builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. When you consistently show up and do what you said you would do, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. That internal trust becomes a foundation for confidence and self-respect. Taking responsibility also changes how you view failure. Instead of seeing failure as something to avoid or something that defines you, you begin to see it as feedback. When something doesn't work, you don't immediately look for someone or something to blame. You analyze what happened, identify what you could have done differently, and use that information to improve. This approach accelerates growth because you are constantly learning and adapting. It's important to understand that taking responsibility does not mean being overly harsh on yourself. It's not about guilt or self-blame. In fact, excessive self-criticism can be just as limiting as blaming others. True responsibility is balanced. It acknowledges mistakes without dwelling there. It focuses on solutions rather than punishment. It treats setbacks as part of the process rather than as evidence of failure. Responsibility also requires discipline. It's easy to take responsibility when things are going well, but it's much harder when you're tired, stressed, or facing challenges. In those moments, it's tempting to fall back into old patterns of avoidance or excuse-making. Discipline is what keeps you aligned with your responsibilities, even when your emotions are not cooperating. Another key element is ownership of your mindset. Your thoughts play a significant role in how you experience life. If you constantly think in terms of limitations, problems, and negativity, it will reflect in your actions and results. Taking responsibility means being aware of your thought patterns and actively working to shift them in a more constructive direction. It means choosing to focus on what you can control rather than what you can't. Your environment can influence your ability to take responsibility, but it should not dictate it. There may be people around you who avoid responsibility, who make excuses, or who encourage a victim mindset. Being in that environment can make it more challenging to adopt a different approach. However, taking responsibility means recognizing that you still have a choice in how you think and act, regardless of your surroundings. It may also require you to make changes, spending less time around negativity, seeking out more supportive influences, or creating routines that reinforce positive behavior. These changes are part of taking responsibility because they reflect a commitment to your own growth. One of the most empowering aspects of taking responsibility is the sense of control it brings. When you stop relying on external factors to determine your success, you realize that your progress is in your hands. This doesn't guarantee immediate results, but it does guarantee that you are moving forward. It creates momentum, and that momentum builds over time. Responsibility also strengthens resilience. When you know that you are responsible for your actions and outcomes, you become more prepared to handle challenges. You don't see difficulties as something unfair or unexpected. You see them as part of the journey. This mindset makes it easier to stay focused and continue moving forward, even when things get tough. It's also worth noting that taking responsibility can improve your relationships. When you own your actions, admit your mistakes, and make an effort to improve, you build trust and respect with others. You become someone who is dependable and accountable, which positively impacts both personal and professional interactions. However, this doesn't mean taking responsibility for things that are not yours to carry. There is a difference between ownership and unnecessary burden. You are responsible for your actions, your reactions, and your choices, not for controlling others or fixing everything around you. Understanding this distinction is important because it allows you to focus your energy where it truly matters. As you continue to take responsibility, you begin to notice changes not just in your results, but in your mindset. You become more proactive, more focused, and more intentional. You stop waiting for things to happen and start making them happen. You develop a sense of ownership over your life that is both empowering and motivating. This mindset also encourages continuous improvement. When you take responsibility, you are constantly looking for ways to do better. You don't settle for mediocrity because you know that your actions directly influence your outcomes. You push yourself to grow, to learn, and to evolve. It's a process that requires patience. You won't get everything right immediately. There will be times when you slip back into old habits, when you make excuses, or when you avoid responsibility. What matters is your willingness to recognize those moments and correct course. Responsibility is not about perfection, it's about consistency and effort. Over time, this approach transforms your life. You become someone who is in control, not because you can control everything that happens, but because you can control how you respond. You develop a mindset that is focused on growth, action, and accountability. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as the creator of your path. And once you fully embrace that mindset, you unlock a level of potential that was always there, but may have been hidden under layers of doubt, excuses, and hesitation. Stop making excuses is a statement that sounds simple on the surface, but it carries a level of depth and discipline that most people underestimate. Excuses are not always obvious. They don't always come in the form of outright denial or laziness. Often they are disguised as reasonable explanations, temporary setbacks, or even self-protection. They feel justified in the moment, and that's exactly why they are so dangerous. They allow you to remain comfortable while convincing yourself that you are still trying. At the core, an excuse is a way of avoiding responsibility for action or inaction. It's a mental habit that shifts focus away from what you can do and places it on why something cannot be done. The more you rely on excuses, the more you reinforce a mindset that limits your growth. Over time, this becomes automatic. Instead of looking for solutions, your mind immediately looks for reasons why something is difficult, unfair, or impossible. One of the most common forms of excuses is blaming circumstances. People often say they don't have enough time, enough money, enough support, or the right environment. While these challenges can be real, using them as a reason to stop or not even start creates a barrier that is self-imposed. There are countless examples of individuals who face similar or even greater challenges and still found a way forward. The difference is not in the absence of obstacles, but in the refusal to let those obstacles become excuses. Another form of excuses comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, and even fear of success can all manifest as excuses. Instead of acknowledging the fear directly, people create logical sounding reasons to avoid taking action. They might say they need more preparation, more knowledge, or better timing. While preparation is important, it can also become a trap when it is used as a way to delay action indefinitely. Perfectionism is another subtle excuse. It creates the illusion of high standard, but in reality, it often prevents progress. When you wait for everything to be perfect before you start, you give yourself an easy way out. There will always be something that could be improved, something that isn't quite ready. If you allow perfection to be the requirement, you may never take the first step. Excuses also thrive in comfort zones. When you are used to a certain way of living, thinking, or acting, stepping outside of that comfort can feel uncomfortable or even threatening. Excuses provide a way to stay within that familiar space while avoiding the discomfort of growth. They tell you that it's okay to stay where you are because the conditions are not ideal or because the risk is too high. Breaking free from excuses requires awareness. You have to recognize when you are making them, especially when they sound reasonable. This means paying attention to their thoughts and questioning them. When you catch yourself saying, I can't because, or I'll start when, take a moment to examine whether that statement is truly a limitation or just an excuse. Once you become aware of your excuses, the next step is to challenge them. Ask yourself if there is another way. Ask yourself what you can do instead of what you can't do. This shift in questioning forces your mind to move from limitation to possibility. It doesn't eliminate the difficulty, but it changes your approach to it. Taking action is the most effective way to break the cycle of excuses. Action disrupts the pattern. Even small steps can make a difference. When you take action, you prove to yourself that progress is possible, even in imperfect condition. This builds momentum, and momentum makes it easier to continue. Accountability plays a significant role in reducing excuses. When you are only accountable to yourself, it can be easier to justify inaction. But when you involve others, Whether it's a mentor, friend, or a group, you create a level of external pressure that can help you stay on track. Knowing that someone else is aware of your goals and progress can motivate you to follow through. It's also important to understand the emotional aspect of excuses. They often serve as a way to protect your ego. If you don't try, you can't fail. If you don't commit, you can't be judged. In this way, excuses act as a shield. But this protection comes at a cost. It prevents growth, achievement, and fulfillment. Letting go of excuses means accepting vulnerability. It means being willing to try, to fail, and to learn. Another challenge is the habit of comparing yourself to others as a way of justifying excuses. You might think that someone else has more advantages, more resources, or a better starting point, and therefore your lack of progress is understandable. While comparisons can provide perspective, they can also become a convenient way to avoid responsibility. Your journey is unique, and using someone else's situation as a benchmark for your own limitations does not serve your growth. Consistency is key when it comes to eliminating excuses. It's not something you fix once and forget. It's an ongoing process of catching yourself, correcting your mindset, and choosing action over avoidance. There will be days when excuse feels stronger, when motivation is low, and when the easier path is to delay or give up. Those are the moments that matter the most. Each time you choose to act despite the excuse, you weaken its power. Environment can also influence how often you make excuses. If you are surrounded by people who constantly justify inaction or complain about circumstances without taking steps to improve them, it can normalize that behavior. On the other hand, being around individuals who take responsibility and focus on solutions can inspire you to adopt a similar mindset. While you cannot always control your environment, you can be mindful of its impact and make adjustments where possible. Language plays a powerful role in shaping your mindset. The words you use when you talk to yourself can either reinforce excuses or challenge them. Phrases like "I have to" or "I can't" can create a sense of pressure or limitation, while phrases like "I choose to" or "I will find a way" shift the focus to control and possibility. Changing your language may seem small, but over time, it can significantly influence how you think and act. It's also helpful to focus on long-term consequences. Excuses often provide short-term relief. They allow you to avoid discomfort in the moment, but over time, they lead to regret, missed opportunities, and unfulfilled potential. When you start to think beyond the immediate moment and consider where your current habits are leading you, it becomes easier to choose action over excuses. Another important factor is clarity of purpose. When you have a strong reason for what you are doing, excuses lose their power. If your goals are vague or not meaningful to you, it's easier to justify not putting in the effort. But when you are clear about why something matters, when you connect it to your values and your vision for the future, it creates a level of commitment that makes excuses less appealing. Discipline and routine can also reduce the likelihood of excuses. When you have a structured plan and consistent habits, you rely less on motivation and more on systems. This reduces the mental effort required to get started and makes it easier to follow through. Instead of deciding whether to act each time, you simply follow the routine. It's important to recognize that eliminating excuses does not mean ignoring legitimate challenges. There will be times when circumstances genuinely require adjustment. The key difference is in how you respond. Instead of using the challenge as a reason to stop completely, you look for ways to adapt. You modify your approach, adjust your timeline, or seek support, but you keep moving forward. Self-reflection is a valuable tool in this process. Regularly taking time to evaluate your actions, your progress, and your mindset can help you identify patterns of excuses. It allows you to see where you may be holding yourself back and where you can improve. This awareness creates an opportunity for change. Over time, as you reduce excuses and increase action, you begin to build a different identity. You see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who finds solutions, someone who takes responsibility. This identity reinforces your behavior. It makes it easier to continue acting in alignment with your goals because it becomes part of who you are. Letting go of excuses is not about being perfect. or pushing yourself to exhaustion. It's about being honest, taking responsibility, and making consistent effort. It's about recognizing that while you may not control every aspect of your life, you always have control over your actions and your attitude. As you continue to practice this mindset, you will notice a shift not only in your results, but in how you approach challenges. Instead of feeling stuck or limited, you will feel more capable and proactive. You will begin to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. And most importantly, you will realize that the barriers you once believed were holding you back were often the ones you created through excuses. Discipline is more important than motivation because motivation is unreliable, inconsistent, and heavily influenced by emotions, while discipline is stable, structured, and rooted in commitment. Most people start their journey driven by motivation. They feel inspired, energized, and ready to take on challenges. In those moments, action feels easy. Waking up early, working hard, staying focused. It all seems natural when motivation is high. But the problem is that motivation doesn't last. It fades, it fluctuates, and it often disappears exactly when you need it the most. There will be days when you don't feel like doing the work. Days when you're tired, distracted, or discouraged. Days when the excitement is gone and the goal feels distant. If your progress depends only on how you feel in those moments, then your progress will be inconsistent. You will move forward when you feel good and stop when you don't. Over time, this pattern prevents you from building momentum, and without momentum, achieving anything meaningful becomes extremely difficult. Discipline steps in where motivation falls short. Discipline is the ability to take action regardless of how you feel. It is the decision to follow through on your commitment even when it's uncomfortable. It is not driven by emotion, but by intention. When you are disciplined, you don't wait to feel ready. You act because you have decided that the action is necessary. This difference is crucial because success is not built on occasional bursts of effort. It is built on consistent, repeated actions over time. Even small efforts, when done consistently, compound into significant results. Discipline ensures that those actions happen regularly, not just when you feel like it. One of the biggest misconceptions about discipline is that it's something you either have or you don't. In reality, discipline is a skill that can be developed. It starts with small decisions, choosing to do what you said you would do, even when it's inconvenient. Each time you follow through, you strengthen that ability. Over time, those small acts of discipline build into a habit, and that habit becomes part of your identity. Another important aspect of discipline is structure. When you rely on motivation, your actions are often spontaneous and inconsistent. You might work intensely one day and do nothing the next. Discipline, on the other hand, thrives on routine. It creates a system where actions are planned and repeated. This reduces the need for constant decision-making and makes it easier to stay on track. For example, if you decide that you will work on a skill for 1 hour every day at a specific time, you remove the need to decide whether or not to do it each day. It becomes a part of your routine. Over time, this consistency leads to progress, even if each individual session doesn't feel extraordinary. Discipline also requires clarity. You need to know what you are working toward and why it matters. Without a clear purpose, it becomes difficult to stay committed, especially when challenges arise. When you have a strong reason behind your actions, discipline becomes easier to maintain because you are constantly reminded of the bigger picture. Another factor that strengthens discipline is environment. Your surroundings can either support your efforts or make them more difficult. If you are constantly exposed to distractions, it will be harder to stay focused. If your environment encourages procrastination, it will be more challenging to remain consistent. Taking control of your environment, reducing distractions, organizing your space, and surrounding yourself with supportive influences can significantly improve your ability to stay disciplined. Discipline is closely linked to delayed gratification. It requires you to prioritize long-term rewards over short-term comfort. This means choosing to do the work now instead of seeking immediate pleasure or relief. It means understanding that the effort you put in today may not produce immediate results, but it will contribute to your future success. This ability to delay gratification is what separates those who achieve their goals from those who don't. It allows you to stay focused on what truly matters, even when there are easier or more enjoyable options available in the moment. It's also important to recognize that discipline does not eliminate difficulty. There will still be moments when the work feels hard, when you feel tired, or when progress seems slow. The difference is that discipline keeps you moving forward, despite those challenges. It creates a level of consistency that allows you to push through difficult periods without losing momentum. Another key element of discipline is accountability. Holding yourself accountable means taking responsibility for your actions and their outcomes. It means not making excuses when things don't go as planned. It means being honest with yourself about your effort and your consistency. This level of accountability reinforces discipline because it keeps you aligned with your commitments. At the same time, it can be helpful to create external accountability. Sharing your goals with others, working with a mentor, or being part of a group can provide additional motivation to stay on track. Knowing that someone else is aware of your progress can encourage you to follow through, especially when your internal motivation is low. Discipline also involves managing your energy, not just your time. It's not enough to simply allocate time for tasks. You need to ensure that you have the physical and mental energy to perform them effectively. This includes taking care of your health, getting enough rest, and maintaining a balanced lifestyle. When your energy levels are low, it becomes more difficult to stay disciplined. Another important aspect is flexibility. While discipline involves consistency, it does not mean rigidity. Life is unpredictable, and there will be times when your plans need to change. Being disciplined means adapting without losing your overall direction. If we miss a day, you don't give up. You adjust and continue. The goal is not perfection, but persistence. Over time, discipline begins to shape your identity. You start to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who is reliable, someone who can be trusted to do the work. This identity reinforces your behavior because you begin to act in alignment with how you see yourself. It creates a positive cycle where discipline leads to progress. Progress reinforces your identity, and your identity strengthens your discipline. One of the challenges people face when developing discipline is the initial resistance. Starting something new requires effort, and it often feels uncomfortable. This is where many people give up, mistaking that discomfort for a sign that they are not capable or that the task is too difficult. In reality, that discomfort is a normal part of the process. Discipline requires you to push through that initial resistance until the action becomes more natural. Another challenge is maintaining discipline over the long term. It's easy to be disciplined for a short period, but sustaining it requires commitment and consistency. This is where habits become important. When actions become habitual, they require less effort and less reliance on willpower. Building habits takes time, but once established, they make discipline much easier to maintain. It's also important to celebrate progress, even if it's small. Recognizing your efforts and achievements can reinforce your commitment and make the process more rewarding. This doesn't mean becoming complacent, but it does mean acknowledging that your discipline is producing results. Discipline also helps you build resilience. When you consistently face challenges and push through them, you develop the ability to handle heathen situations more effectively. You become less affected by setbacks because you have built a foundation of consistent effort. This resilience allows you to stay focused on your goals even when things don't go as planned. Another benefit of discipline is that it reduces stress and uncertainty. When you have a clear plan and consistent actions, you don't have to constantly worry about what to do next. You have a system in place that guides your actions. This clarity can create a sense of control and stability, even in uncertain situations. It's also worth noting that discipline can influence other areas of your life. When you develop discipline in one area, such as work or study, it often carries over into other areas, such as health, relationships, and personal development. It creates a mindset of consistency and responsibility that can be applied in multiple contexts. Ultimately, discipline is about making choices that align with your goals. Even when those choices are difficult, it's about prioritizing what matters most over what feels easiest in the moment. It's about creating a structure that supports your growth and staying committed to it over time. As you continue to develop discipline, you will find that you rely less on motivation. You won't need to wait for the perfect moment or the right feeling. You will take action because it's part of who you are. And through that consistent action, you will build the progress and results that motivation alone could never sustain. Your habits shape your success in ways that are often invisible in the short term, but undeniable over time. Every action you take, every routine you follow, and every behavior you repeat contributes to a pattern. That pattern becomes your lifestyle, and your lifestyle ultimately determines your results. Success is rarely the result of one big decision or one extraordinary effort. It is the accumulation of small, consistent actions performed day after day. Many people focus on goals, and while goals are important because they provide direction, they often overlook the systems that lead to those goals. Habits are those systems. They are the daily behaviors that either move you closer to your objectives or keep you stuck in place. If your habits are aligned with your goals, progress becomes natural. If they are not, even the strongest intentions will struggle to produce results. One of the reasons habits are so powerful is that they operate automatically. Once a behavior becomes a habit, it requires less mental effort. You don't have to constantly decide whether or not to do it. It becomes part of your routine. This is both a strength and a weakness. Positive habits can carry you forward with minimal resistance, while negative habits can hold you back without you even realizing it. The process of habit formation is gradual. It starts with a conscious decision, followed by repetition. Each time you perform a behavior, you reinforce it. Over time, that behavior becomes easier, more natural, and eventually automatic. This means that the small actions you take today, even if they seem insignificant, are shaping your future. A single workout may not transform your body, and one study session may not make you an expert, but repeated consistently, these actions create significant change. Consistency is the key factor that turns actions into habits. It's not about doing something perfectly, it's about doing it regularly. Even small efforts, when done consistently, can lead to meaningful progress. This is why it's often better to start with manageable habits rather than trying to make drastic changes all at once. When habits are too difficult or demanding, they are harder to maintain and consistency suffers. Another important aspect of habits is their cumulative effect. Positive habits compound over time, meaning that their impact grows as they are repeated. For example, reading a few pages every day may not seem like much, but over months and years, it can result in a vast amount of knowledge. Similarly, saving a small amount of money regularly can significant financial growth over time. On the other hand, negative habits also compound. Small, seemingly harmless behaviors, when repeated, can lead to negative outcomes that are difficult to reverse. Awareness is the first step in shaping your habits. You need to understand your current behaviors and how they are influencing your life. This requires honesty and reflection. Look at your daily routine and identify which habits are helping you and which are holding you back. This process can be uncomfortable because it may reveal patterns that you would rather ignore, but it is necessary for change. Once you have identified your habits, the next step is to make intentional adjustments. This doesn't mean trying to change everything at once. In fact, attempting to overhaul your entire routine can be overwhelming and unsustainable. Instead, focus on 1 or 2 habits at a time. Choose behaviors that have a significant impact and are aligned with your goals. Replacing negative habits with positive ones is often more effective than simply trying to eliminate them. Habits are deeply ingrained, and removing them without providing an alternative can create a void that is difficult to maintain. By introducing a positive behavior in place of a negative one, you create a smoother transition and increase the likelihood of long-term success. Environment plays a significant role in habit formation. Your surroundings can either support or hinder your efforts. If your environment is filled with distractions or triggers for negative habits, it becomes more challenging to stay on track. On the other hand, an environment that is organized, supportive, and aligned with your goals can make positive habits easier to maintain. For example, if you want to develop a habit of reading, Keeping books easily accessible can encourage that behavior. If you want to reduce distractions, minimizing access to those distractions can help. Another important factor is identity. The habits you follow are often a reflection of how you see yourself. If you identify as someone who is disciplined, focused, and committed, you are more likely to engage in behavior that align with that identity. Conversely, if you see yourself as inconsistent or unmotivated, your actions may reflect that belief. Changing your habits can also involve changing your identity. Instead of focusing solely on what you want to achieve, consider who you want to become. When your habits align with that identity, then become more meaningful and sustainable. Tracking your habits can be a useful tool for maintaining consistency. Keeping a record of your actions provides a visual representation of your progress and can reinforce your commitment. It also helps you identify patterns and areas where you may need to improve. This doesn't have to be complicated. Even a simple checklist or journal can be effective. Another challenge in building habits is dealing with setbacks. There will be times when you miss a day or fall off track. This is a normal part of the process. What matters is how you respond. One missed day does not erase your progress, but allowing that setback to turn into a pattern can. The key is to resume your habit as soon as possible and avoid being overly critical of yourself. Habits are also influenced by your level of discipline. While habits reduce the need for constant decision-making, they still require effort, especially in the early stages. Discipline helps you stay consistent until the behavior becomes automatic. Over time, as the habit becomes ingrained, it requires less effort, but discipline remains important for maintaining it. It's also important to recognize the role of rewards in habit formation. Positive reinforcement can strengthen habits by associating them with a sense of satisfaction or accomplishment. This doesn't necessarily mean external rewards. It can also be the internal satisfaction of knowing you follow through on your commitment. Celebrating small wins can make the process more enjoyable and motivate you to continue. Social influence can also impact your habits. The people you spend time with can shape your behaviors, often without you realizing it. If you are surrounded by individuals who have positive habits and a growth-oriented mindset, it can encourage you to adopt similar behaviors. Conversely, being around people with negative habits can make it more challenging to maintain your own. Time is another important factor. Habits do not form overnight, and expecting immediate results can lead to frustration. It takes patience and persistence to build lasting habits. Understanding this can help you stay committed even when progress feels slow. Your mindset plays a crucial role as well. Viewing habits as a long-term investment rather than a short-term effort can change how you approach them. Instead of focusing on immediate results, you focus on the process. This shift in perspective makes it easier to stay consistent because you are not constantly evaluating your progress based on short-term outcomes. It's also helpful to align your habits with your values. When your behaviors reflect what is important to you, they become more meaningful and easier to maintain. For example, if you value health, habits like regular exercise and balanced nutrition become more than just tasks. They become expressions of your values. Over time, your habits create a feedback loop. Positive habits lead to positive results, which reinforce the habit. Negative habits lead to negative outcomes, which can either reinforce the habit or motivate change, depending on how you respond. Being aware of this loop can help you make more intentional choices. Ultimately, your success is not determined by what you do occasionally, but by what you do consistently. Your habits are the foundation of that consistency. They shape your actions, your mindset, and your results. By taking control of your habits, you take control of your direction in life. As you continue to build and refine your habits, you will begin to notice changes not only in your results, but in how you approach your goals. You will rely less on motivation and more on routine. You will find it easier to take action because it becomes part of your daily life. And over time, those small, consistent actions will lead to outcomes that once seemed far out of reach. Growth happens in discomfort, and this idea challenges one of the most natural human instincts, the desire to stay safe, secure, and comfortable. Comfort feels good. It gives a sense of control, predictability, and ease. But while comfort protects you from stress and uncertainty, it also limits your potential. It keeps you in a space where nothing demands more from you than what you already are. And if nothing demands more from you, nothing pushes you to become more. Discomfort, on the other hand, is where change begins. It is the space where you are forced to adapt, to learn, and to stretch beyond your current limits. It doesn't feel easy, and it's not supposed to. Discomfort introduces uncertainty, challenges your abilities, and exposes your weaknesses. But within that process lies the opportunity for growth. When you step into something unfamiliar, whether it's learning a new skill, taking on a bigger responsibility, or facing a fear, your mind and body react. You may feel nervous, hesitant, or even overwhelmed. These feelings are often interpreted as signals to stop, to retreat back to what is known and comfortable. But in reality, they are indicators that you are entering a space where growth is possible. One of the reasons discomfort leads to growth is because it forces you to engage more deeply. When something is easy or familiar, it can operate on autopilot. You don't need to think as much, adapt as much, or push as hard. But when you are uncomfortable, you are more alert. You pay attention. You problem solve. You become more aware of what you are doing and how you are doing it and how you are doing it. This heightened level of engagement accelerates learning. Discomfort also reveals your limits. It shows you where you currently stand and where you need to improve. Without experiencing difficulty, it is hard to identify areas that require development. Challenges act as feedback. They highlight gaps in your knowledge, skills, or mindset. While this can be uncomfortable, it is essential for progress. You cannot improve what you do not recognize. Another important aspect of discomfort is that it builds resilience. Each time you face a challenge and push through it, you strengthen your ability to handle future difficulties. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable. Over time, your tolerance for discomfort increases, and situations that previously caused hesitation no longer have the same effect. This doesn't mean challenges become easy, but it does mean you become stronger in facing them. Avoiding discomfort, on the other hand, leads to stagnation. When you consistently choose the easier path, you reinforce a pattern of avoidance. This may provide short-term relief, but it limits long-term growth. Over time, your comfort zone becomes smaller, not larger. You become less willing to take risks, less open to new experiences, and more resistant to change. Comfort zones are not inherently negative. They provide stability and rest, but staying in them for too long can create a false sense of security. Life is constantly changing, and the ability to adapt is essential. If you are not regularly stepping outside of your comfort zone, you may find yourself unprepared when change is forced upon you. One of the biggest barriers to embracing discomfort is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of unknown. These fears are natural, but they can also be limiting if they prevent you from taking action. Discomfort often brings these fears to the surface, making them more visible, instead of avoiding them. Growth requires you to face them. Facing fear does not mean eliminating it. It means acting despite it. Each time you do something that scares you, you reduce its power. You prove to yourself that you can handle the situation, even if the outcome is not perfect. This builds confidence and reinforces your ability to take on new challenges. Well, another important factor is mindset. How you interpret discomfort plays a significant role in how you respond to it. If you see discomfort as a negative experience to be avoided, you are more likely to resist it. But if you view it as a sign of growth, as an indication that you are pushing your limits, your perspective changes. Discomfort becomes something to embrace rather than fear. This shift in mindset takes practice. It requires you to consciously reframe your thoughts. When you feel uncomfortable, instead of thinking that this is too hard or I can't do this, you begin to think of this as part of the process or this is how I grow. These small changes in thinking can influence your actions and help you stay committed. Discomfort also encourages creativity and problem solving. When you are faced with challenges, you are forced to think differently. You look for new solutions, try different approaches, and adapt your strategies. This process not only helps you overcome the immediate challenge, but also develop skills that can be applied in other areas of your life. It's important to note that not all discomfort is the same. There is a difference between productive discomfort and harmful stress. Productive discomfort is the type that pushes you to grow, even if it feels challenging. Harmful stress, on the other hand, can be overwhelming and counterproductive. The goal is to find a balance where you are consistently challenging yourself without pushing beyond your capacity to recover. Recovery is an essential part of growth. Just as muscles need time to rest after being strained, your mind and body need time to process and recover from challenges. This doesn't mean avoiding discomfort altogether, but it does mean allowing space for rest and reflection. This balance ensures that growth is sustainable. Another key element is consistency. Growth does not come from a single moment of discomfort, but from repeated exposure over time. Each time you step outside of your comfort zone, you expand it slightly. Over time, what once felt uncomfortable becomes familiar, and you are ready to take on new challenges. Support systems can also play a role in navigating discomfort. Having people who encourage you, understand your goals, and who provide guidance can make the process less overwhelming. While growth is ultimately your responsibility, support can provide perspective and motivation during difficult times. It's also helpful to set realistic challenges. Jumping too far outside of your comfort zone can lead to discouragement, while staying too close may not provide enough growth. Finding the right level of challenge allows you to stretch your abilities without becoming overwhelmed. This gradual approach helps build confidence and momentum. Discomfort often comes with uncertainty. You may not know the outcome, and that can be unsettling. But uncertainty is also where opportunity exists. If everything were predictable, there would be little room for growth or discovery. Learning to tolerate uncertainty is part of embracing discomfort. It allows you to move forward even when you don't have all the answers. Another benefit of discomfort is that it builds character. It teaches patience, persistence, and humility. It reminds you that growth is not always linear and that setbacks are part of the process. These lessons extend beyond specific goals and contribute to your overall development as a person. It's also important to recognize that growth looks different for everyone. What is uncomfortable for one person may be easy for another. Your journey is unique, and your challenges will reflect your current level and your goals. Comparing your discomfort to someone else's can be misleading. Don't focus on your own progress and your own willingness to step outside of your comfort zone. Over time, as you become more comfortable with discomfort, your relationship with challenges changes. You no longer see them as obstacles to avoid, but as opportunities to grow. You begin to seek out challenges rather than shy away from them. This shift is powerful because it transforms your approach to life. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment or the ideal conditions, you take action even when things are uncertain. You trust your ability to adapt and learn. You understand that growth is not about avoiding difficulty, but about embracing it. Discomfort also strengthens your sense of accomplishment. When you achieve something that required effort and pushed you beyond your limits, the satisfaction is deeper. It is not just about the result, but about the process you went through to get there. This reinforces your willingness to take on future challenges. Ultimately, growth requires you to accept that discomfort is not something to eliminate, but something to navigate. It is a necessary part of progress, a signal that you are moving beyond your current limits. By embracing discomfort, you open yourself up to new possibilities, new skills, and new levels of achievement. As you continue to step into discomfort, you will find that your capacity for growth expands. You become more adaptable, more resilient, and more confident in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. And with each step, you move closer to becoming the person you are capable of being. Mindset determines your direction in ways that are both subtle and profound. It shapes how you interpret your experiences, how you respond to challenges, and ultimately the path your life takes. Long before actions produce results, your mindset influences the decisions that lead to those actions. It acts as an internal compass, guiding you either toward growth, resilience, and opportunity, or toward limitation, fear, and stagnation. At its core, mindset is the collection of beliefs and attitudes you hold about yourself, your abilities, and the world around you. These beliefs are often formed over time through experiences, upbringing, and environment. Many of them operate unconsciously. meaning you may not even realize how they are influencing your behavior, yet they are constantly shaping your perspective and your choices. When you have a growth-oriented mindset, you believe that your abilities can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. This belief changes how you approach challenges. Instead of avoiding difficulty, you see it as an opportunity to improve. You are more willing to take risks, try new things, and push beyond your comfort zone. Failures are not seen as permanent setbacks, but as temporary obstacles that provide valuable lessons. On the other hand, a limiting mindset creates a very different direction. When you believe that your abilities are fixed or that circumstances define your potential, you are more likely to avoid challenges. You may hesitate to take risks because you fear failure or judgment. You might give up more easily when things become difficult because you interpret setbacks as evidence that you are not capable. Over time, this mindset can lead to stagnation, not because you lack ability, but because you limit your own actions. One of the most powerful aspects of mindset is how it influences perception. Two people can experience the same situation and interpret it in completely different ways based on their mindset. One may see an obstacle and feel discouraged, while the other sees the same obstacle as a chance to learn and grow. This difference in perception leads to different actions, and those actions lead to different outcomes. Your mindset also affects your level of confidence. Confidence is not just about external achievements. It is rooted in how you view yourself. If your mindset is filled with self-doubt and negative assumptions, your confidence will be fragile. You may hesitate to take action, second-guess your decisions, or avoid opportunities altogether. But if your mindset is supportive and constructive, you are more likely to trust yourself, take initiative, and move forward even when you are uncertain. Another important factor is how mindset shapes your response to failure. Failure is an inevitable part of any meaningful pursuit. What matters is not whether you fail, but how you interpret that failure. A negative mindset may see failure as a sign of inadequacy, leading to discouragement and withdrawal. A growth-oriented mindset, however, sees failure back. It asks questions like, what can I learn from this? And how can I improve? This approach turns setbacks into stepping stones rather than barriers. Mindset also plays a crucial role in motivation. When you believe that your efforts can lead to improvement, you are more likely to stay motivated and persistent. Yeah? You see a connection between what you do and what you achieve. But if you believe that your efforts won't make a difference, motivation becomes difficult to sustain. You may feel that your actions are pointless, which leads to inaction or minimal effort. The direction your life takes is largely influenced by the choices you make. And those choices are guided by your mindset. Every decision, whether big or small, is filtered through your beliefs and attitudes. If your mindset is focused on growth, possibility, and resilience, you are more likely to make choices that move you forward. If your mindset is focused on fear, limitation, and doubt, your choices may keep you in place or even move you backward. Changing your mindset is not an overnight process. It requires awareness, effort, and consistency. The first step is recognizing your current thought patterns. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself, how you interpret situations, and how you react to challenges. This awareness allows you to identify limiting beliefs that may be holding you back. Once you identify these beliefs, the next step is to challenge them. Ask yourself whether they are truly accurate or if they are assumptions based on past experiences or fears. Often limiting beliefs are not facts, but interpretations. By questioning them, you create space for new, more empowering beliefs. Replacing limiting beliefs with constructive ones takes practice. It involves consciously choosing thoughts that support your growth. For example, instead of thinking I'm not good at this, you might think I'm still learning this. This small shift changes your perspective from limitation to possibility. Over time, these new thought patterns can become more natural. Your environment can also influence your mindset. The people you interact with, the content you consume, and the experiences you have all contribute to how you think. Surrounding yourself with positive influence, individuals who encourage growth and resilience can reinforce a constructive mindset. At the same time, being aware of negative influences allows you to limit their impact. Another important aspect of mindset is self-talk. The way you speak to yourself has a significant effect on your confidence and motivation. Negative self-talk can reinforce limiting beliefs and create a cycle of doubt. Positive, constructive self-talk, on the other hand, can encourage action and resilience. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect, but it does mean framing your thoughts in a way that supports growth. Visualization can also play a role in shaping mindset. When you imagine yourself achieving your goals, overcoming challenges, and becoming the person you aspire to be, you create a mental image that influences your behavior. This visualization helps align your thoughts with your desired direction and can increase your willingness to take action. Mindset is closely connected to resilience. When you have a strong, growth-oriented mindset, you are better equipped to handle adversity. You understand that challenges are part of the journey and that setbacks do not define you. This perspective allows you to remain focused and continue moving forward, even in difficult situations. It's also important to recognize that mindset is not fixed. It can evolve over time based on your experiences and efforts. This means that no matter where you are now, you have the ability to develop a mindset that supports your goals. This process requires patience and consistency, but the impact can be transformative. Your mindset also influences how you perceive opportunities. A positive mindset makes you more open to new possibilities. You are more likely to recognize and pursue opportunities that align with your goals. A negative mindset, however, may cause you to overlook or dismiss opportunities because of fear or doubt. Another key element is adaptability. A flexible mindset allows you to adjust to changing circumstances. Instead of resisting change, you learn to navigate it. This adaptability is essential in a world that is constantly evolving. It enables you to remain relevant, to learn new skills, and to respond effectively to challenges. Mindset also affects your relationships. The way you think about others, your expectations, and your communication style all stem from your mindset. A positive mindset can lead to stronger, more supportive relationships, while a negative mindset can create conflict and misunderstanding. Consistency in developing your mindset is crucial. It's not about having a positive mindset once in a while. It's about maintaining it over time. This requires ongoing effort, reflection, and adjustment. There will be moments when negative thoughts arise, and that is normal. What matters is how you respond to them. Over time, as you cultivate a constructive mindset, you will notice changes in your behavioral results. You will become more proactive, more resilient, and more open to growth. Your decisions will align more closely with your goals, and your actions will reflect your commitment. The direction of your life is not determined by a single moment or decision, but by the accumulation of your thoughts, choices, and actions over time. Your mindset sits at the center of this process, influencing each step along the way. As you continue to develop your mindset, you gain greater control over your direction. You become less reactive to circumstances and more intentional in your actions. You begin to shape your path rather than simply follow it. And in doing so, you move toward a life that reflects not just your external circumstances, but your internal beliefs about what is possible. Nobody is coming to save you is one of the hardest truths to accept, but also one of the most empowering reality you can understand. It strips away illusions, excuses, and dependency and forces you to confront the responsibility of your own life. Most people grow up with the belief, whether spoken or unspoken, that at some point, someone or something will step in and change their situation. They wait for the right opportunity, the right person, the right system, or the right moment. But life rarely works that way. The reality is that no one else experiences your thoughts, your struggles, your dreams, or your internal battles the way you do. No one else feels the urgency of your goals with the same intensity you do. And because of that, no one else will carry your responsibility with the same commitment you need from yourself. People may support you, guide you, or inspire you, but they cannot live your life for you. This truth is not meant to discourage you. In fact, it is meant to do the opposite. It is meant to awaken something within you. When you realize that no external force is going to rescue you, you stop waiting. You stop waiting. You start acting. You begin to understand that the power to change your life has always been in your hands, even if you have not fully used it yet. One of the biggest traps people fall into is dependency. They depend on circumstances to improve, on people to motivate them, or on external validation to feel capable. This dependency creates a passive mindset where life feels like something that happens to them rather than something they actively shape. When you depend on external rescue, you give away control over your own progress. Waiting becomes a habit. You wait for motivation to start. Wait for the perfect time to begin. Wait for clarity before making decision. Wait for support before taking action. But waiting does not change your situation. Action does. And the longer you wait, the more you reinforce the belief that you are not in control. Taking ownership means breaking the cycle of waiting. It means recognizing that even if conditions are not ideal, even if you feel unprepared, even if you are uncertain, you still have the ability to take a step forward. That step may be small, imperfect, or uncomfortable, but it is still movement. And movement is what creates change. Another important aspect of this truth is understanding that external help is limited. People around you may have their own responsibilities, struggles, and priorities. Even those who care about you deeply cannot always be present or fully invested in your journey. This is not a reflection of their lack of care. It is a reflection of human limitation. Everyone is managing their own life. This is why relying solely on others for progress is dangerous. Support systems are valuable, but they are not substitutes for personal responsibility. When support is available, it should be used as a tool, not a dependency. When it is not available, you must still be able to move forward. Self-reliance does not mean isolation. It does not mean you reject help or refuse guidance. It means you understand that the ultimate responsibility for your direction lies with you. You can receive advice, but you decide whether to act on it. You can be inspired by others, but you are the one who must put in the effort. You can be encouraged, but you are the one who must stay consistent when encouragement is absent. One of the most powerful shifts that happens when you accept that nobody is coming to save you is the shift from victimhood to ownership. Victimhood is a mindset where external forces are seen as the primary cause of your situation. Ownership is a mindset where you recognize your ability to respond, adapt, and act regardless of external conditions. Victimhood feels easier in the short term because it removes responsibility. It allows you to explain your situation without needing to change it. But over time, it becomes limiting. It keeps you stuck in explanation instead of action. Ownership, on the other hand, may feel heavier at first because it requires responsibility, but it leads to empowerment because it gives you control over your direction. This truth also challenges the idea of perfect conditions. Many people delay their goals because they are waiting for everything to align perfectly. They believe they need more time, more resources, more confidence, or more clarity before they begin. But in reality, perfect conditions rarely exist. If you wait for everything to be perfect, you may never start. Progress often begins in imperfect conditions. It begins when you decide to act despite uncertainty. It begins when you take responsibility even when you don't feel fully ready. And over time, through action, clarity and confidence develop. Another important element is emotional resilience. When you accept that nobody is coming to save you, you also accept that you will face challenges alone at times. There will be moments when things don't go your way, when support is absent, and when you are forced to rely on your own strength. These moments can be uncomfortable, but they are also where growth happens. In those moments, you discover what you are capable of. You learn how to problem solve under pressure, how to stay focused without external motivation, and how to keep moving even when things are difficult. These experiences build inner strength that cannot be developed through comfort or dependency. It is also important to understand that taking responsibility does not mean you will never receive help. Help will come in many forms throughout life, but it is unpredictable and inconsistent. If you build your life expecting help to arrive at the right moment, you will often be disappointed. But if you build your life assuming that you are responsible for your progress, any help you receive becomes a bonus rather than a necessity. This mindset also improves decision making. When you stop waiting for rescue, you become more intentional about your choices. You start evaluating what you can do now instead of what might happen later. You focus on actions within your control rather than possibilities outside your control. This clarity reduces confusion and increases effectiveness. Another major benefit of this mindset is increased urgency. When you believe that someone else will eventually fix your situation, you can afford to delay. But when you realize that no one else is responsible for your progress, urgency increases. You understand that time matters, that effort matters, and every day of inaction has consequences. This urgency does not mean panic or pressure. It means awareness. It means recognizing that your life is shaped by what you do consistently, not by what you hope will happen. Accountability becomes essential in this process. When you hold yourself accountable, you create a structure that supports action. You evaluate your behavior honestly. You ask whether you are moving forward or staying stuck. You stop justifying inaction and start correcting it. This internal accountability replaces the need for external rescue. Another key aspect is self-trust. When you repeatedly take responsibility for your life, you begin to trust yourself more. You trust that you can handle challenges, that you can figure things out, and that you can recover from setbacks. This self-trust becomes a foundation for confidence and independence. Over time, this mindset transforms your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone waiting for change and start seeing yourself as someone creating change. You become more proactive, more resilient, and more focused on long-term growth. There's also important knowledge that this mindset is not about ignoring emotion or pretending everything is easy. There will be moments of frustration, doubt, and fatigue. Accepting that nobody is coming to save you does not remove these emotions. It changes how you respond to them. Instead of using them as reasons to stop, you learn to move forward despite them. Ultimately, this truth places power back where it belongs, with you. It removes illusions that delay progress and replaces them with clarity that drives action. It reminds you that while you may not control everything in life, you always control your response. And in that realization lies the beginning of real transformation. Because once you stop waiting to be saved, you start building the life you once hoped someone else would create for you. Consistency beats talent is a truth that challenges one of the most common beliefs people have about success. That natural ability is the deciding factor in who wins and who fails. Talent is often admired, praised, and envied. It creates the impression that some people are simply born with advantages that others can never match. While talent is real and can provide an early advantage, it is not the strongest predictor of long-term success. What truly determines outcomes over time is consistency. Consistency is the ability to show up repeatedly, to put in effort day after day, and to continue taking action even when motivation fades or results are not immediately visible. It is not about occasional bursts of effort or temporary inspiration. It's about sustained commitment over time, regardless of mood, circumstances, or external validation. When consistency is present, it compounds. Small actions repeated regularly become powerful forces of change. Talent, on the other hand, often creates an early advantage but can also lead to complacency. A talented individual may find things easier at the beginning, requiring less effort to achieve noticeable results. Because of this ease, they may not develop strong discipline or work habits. When challenges increase or competition becomes stronger, talent alone is often not enough to sustain progress. Without consistency, even the most gifted individuals can fall behind those who are less naturally gifted but more disciplined. Consistency works because it is rooted in repetition. Every time you perform an action, you reinforce a pattern. That pattern becomes stronger with time. Whether it is studying, practicing a skill, exercising, or working toward a goal, repetition builds familiarity. A familiarity leads to improvement, and improvement leads to mastery. The key is not how much you do in a single moment, but how often you do it over time. One of the most important aspects of consistency is that it reduces reliance on motivation. Motivation is unpredictable. It comes and goes based on emotions, environment, and circumstances. If you depend on motivation to take action, your progress will be inconsistent. There will be days when you feel energized and productive, and other days when you feel unmotivated and stuck. Consistency removes this dependency. It creates a structure where action happens regardless of how you feel. This is why people who achieve long-term success often rely on systems rather than feelings. They create routines, schedules, and habits that ensure they continue working even when motivation is absent. These systems allow them to maintain progress over time, even during periods of low energy or uncertainty. Another reason consistency is more powerful than talent is because it builds discipline. Discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when it is difficult. Each time you act consistently, you strengthen your discipline. Over time, discipline becomes part of your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who does not quit easily, someone who can be trusted to stay committed. Talent without consistency often leads to unfulfilled potential. Many talented individuals never reach their full capabilities because they rely too heavily on their natural abilities. They assume that talent alone will carry them forward, so they do not develop the habits necessary for long-term success. When they encounter obstacles that require sustained effort, they may struggle because they are not used to pushing through difficulty. In contrast, individuals who may not be naturally talented, but who are highly consistent often surpass expectations. They improve steadily over time, closing the gap through repetition and effort. Their progress may seem slower at first, but over the long term, it becomes more stable and reliable. Consistency allows them to continuously refine their skills, learn from mistakes, and adapt to challenges. Another key factor is that consistency creates momentum. When you take action regularly, each step builds on the previous one. This creates a sense of progress that becomes easier to maintain over time. Momentum reduces resistance. The more consistent you are, the easier it becomes to continue being consistent. This creates a positive cycle where action leads to progress and progress reinforces action. Talent does not automatically create momentum. Without consistent effort, talent remains static. It may produce occasional results, but it does not generate sustained movement. Consistency, however, ensures that progress continues even if it is gradual. Most meaningful goals require sustained effort over time. If your attention is constantly shifting between different goals or activities, it becomes difficult to make meaningful progress in any one direction. Focus ensures that your energy is directed consistently toward what matters most. It helps you prioritize and filter out what is unnecessary. One of the reasons people struggle with focus is because of lack of clarity. When you are not clear about what you are trying to achieve, your attention naturally becomes scattered. You are more likely to jump between tasks, chase distractions, or lose interest quickly. Clarity acts as a foundation for focus. When you know exactly what you want and why you want it, it becomes easier to stay committed to it. Another barrier to focus is emotional resistance. Difficult tasks often bring discomfort, and the mind naturally seeks relief from discomfort. Distractions provide that relief. They offer quick satisfaction without effort. This is why it becomes easy to choose short-term pleasure over long-term progress. Overcoming this requires awareness and self-control. You have to recognize when you are avoiding discomfort and consciously choose to stay engaged. Focus is also closely connected to time management. How you spend your time reflects what you focus on. If your focus is weak, your time becomes fragmented. You may spend hours without meaningful progress because your attention keeps shifting. But when focus is strong, even a short period of time can produce significant results. It is not the quantity of time that matters most, but the quality of attention during that time. Environment plays a significant role in shaping focus. A noisy, chaotic, or distracting environment makes it harder to concentrate. On the other hand, a structured and organized environment supports deeper attention. This is why creating a space that minimizes distractions is important for maintaining focus. Small changes, such as turning off notifications, organizing your workspace, or setting specific times for deep work can significantly improve your ability to concentrate. Focus also requires boundaries. Without boundaries, distractions easily enter your time and attention. Setting boundaries means deciding in advance what deserves your attention and what does not. It means protecting your time from unnecessary interruption. This can include setting limits on social media use, defining work periods, or communicating your availability to others. Another important element of focus is mental training. Like any skill, focus improves with practice. The more you train your mind to stay on one task, the stronger your ability becomes. Initially, it may feel difficult to maintain attention for long periods. Your mind may wander frequently. But with practice, you can gradually extend your ability to stay engaged. This is similar to building a muscle. It strengthens over time with consistent use. Multitasking is often mistaken for productivity, but in reality, it reduces focus. When you try to do multiple things at once, your attention is divided. This leads to lower quality work and increased mental fatigue. True productivity comes from doing one thing at a time with full attention. This allows you to complete tasks more effectively and with greater accuracy. Focus also enhances creativity. When your mind is not constantly switching between distractions, it has the space to think deeply. Creative ideas often emerge during periods of sustained attention. When you are fully immersed in a task, your mind begins to make connections and generate insights that would not appear in a distracted state. Another benefit of focus is that it builds confidence. When you complete tasks with full attention and see meaningful results, you begin to trust your ability to perform. This trust reinforces your willingness to take on more challenging tasks. Over time, this creates a cycle of improvement and confidence. Focus also helps reduce stress. When your attention is scattered, your mind feels overwhelmed. You may feel like there's too much to do and not enough time. But when you focus on one task at a time, your mind becomes calm or organized. You are no longer trying to manage everything at once. You are simply engaging with what is in front of you. Another important aspect is that focus helps you avoid regret. Many people look back on their lives and realize that their lack of focus prevented them from achieving their potential. They spent too much time distracted, too much time multitasking, and too little time deeply engaging with what mattered. Focus ensures that your time is used intentionally rather than wasted unintentionally. Developing focus requires consistency. This is not something that improves overnight. It requires repeated effort to resist distractions and return your attention to what matters. Each time you bring your focus back, you strengthen your ability to stay present. Over time, this becomes easier and more natural. It is also important to recognize that focus is a choice. At any moment, you can choose where your attention goes. While external distractions exist, your response to them is within your control. This means that focus is not about eliminating distractions completely, but about choosing not to engage with them. As your focus improves, your results begin to reflect that change. You complete tasks more efficiently, learn more effectively, and make faster progress toward your goals. You begin to notice that the same amount of time produces greater outcomes simply because your attention is more directed. Ultimately, focus is the difference between motion and progress. You can be busy without being productive, but when you are focused, every action has direction and purpose. It allows you to channel your inner what truly matters and build meaningful results over time. And as you continue to strengthen your focus, you begin to realize that success is not about doing more things, but about doing the right things with complete attention. Turning pain into fuel is one of the most powerful mental shifts a person can make because it changes the meaning of suffering. Instead of seeing pain as something that stops you, breaks you, or defines you negatively, you begin to see it as raw energy that can be redirected. Pain does not disappear when you ignore it. It stays with you in the form of memories, emotions, and experiences. The difference between those who grow and those who remain stuck is not whether they experience pain, but what they do with it. Pain is inevitable. Everyone experiences it in different forms. Failure, rejection, loss, disappointment, betrayal, or missed opportunities. No life is exempt from it. But while pain is universal, response is not. Some people allow pain to harden them in a negative way, causing bitterness, fear, and withdrawal. Others use it as motivation, transforming it into discipline, focus, and drive. The same energy that can destroy, you can also build you depending on how you channel it. One of the first steps in turning pain into fuel is acknowledging it instead of suppressing it. Many people try to avoid pain because it is uncomfortable. They distract themselves, deny it, or pretend it doesn't affect them. But unacknowledged pain does not disappear. It accumulates. It influences behavior in subtle ways, often leading to procrastination, anger, lack of motivation, or self-sabotage. Facing pain directly is not about dwelling on it, but about recognizing its presence so it can be processed and redirected. Pain often carries a message. It reveals what matters to you. You only feel deep emotional pain when something you care about is affected. That means pain can point you toward your values, your goals, and your priorities. When you understand what your pain is connected to, you begin to see its purpose. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift in perspective transforms pain from something random into something meaningful. Another important aspect of turning pain into fuel is using it as motivation for action. Pain creates emotional intensity, and that intensity can either paralyze you or push you forward. When channeled correctly, pain becomes a powerful driver of change. It gives you urgency. It removes complacency. It forces you to move. Many people achieve significant breakthroughs only after experiencing a painful moment that makes staying the same unbearable. However, using pain as fuel does not mean acting impulsively. It means directing your emotional energy into constructive behavior. Instead of reacting in destructive ways, you choose actions that align with your goals. For example, instead of allowing failure to lead to self-doubt, you use it as motivation to improve your skills. Instead of allowing rejection to create withdrawal, you use it as motivation to build resilience and confidence. Pain also builds clarity. In moments of comfort, it is easy to become distracted or unfocused. But pain has a way of stripping away distractions and revealing what truly matters. It forces you to confront reality. It shows you where you are weak, where you need to grow, and what needs to change. This clarity can be uncomfortable, but it is essential for progress. Another important element is emotional resilience. When you turn pain into fuel, you develop the ability to withstand difficulty without breaking down. You learn that pain is not permanent, even though it may feel intense in the moment. Each time you survive a painful experience and continue moving forward, your resilience grows. You begin to trust yourself more because you have evidence that you can handle adversity. Pain also has the potential to reshape identity. When someone experiences hardship and chooses to grow from it, they often emerge stronger and more self-aware. They begin to see themselves as someone who can overcome challenges, someone who does not quit easily, someone who uses difficulty as a stepping stone rather than a stopping point. This identity shift is powerful because it influences future behavior. One of the most common mistakes people make is allowing pain to define them negatively. Instead of seeing pain as an event or experience, they begin to see it as part of who they are. This leads to labels like I'm a failure or I am not good enough. These identities become limiting because they shape expectations and behavior. Turning pain into fuel requires separating identity from experience. You are not your pain. You are the person experiencing and responding to it. Another key aspect is transformation through action. Pain alone does not create growth. It is the response to pain that matters. Without action, pain remains stagnant energy. But when you take action, whether it is learning, practicing, building, or improving, you convert emotional intensity into progress. Action is the bridge between emotion and transformation. Discipline plays a critical role in this process. Pain can create strong emotions, but discipline ensures those emotions are directed properly. Without discipline, pain can lead to impulsive decisions or destructive behavior. With discipline, pain becomes structured energy that is used consistently toward improvement. Another important factor is time. Pain feels strongest in the moment it is experienced, but its intensity naturally decreases over time if it is processed correctly. However, if it is not processed, it can linger and resurface repeatedly. Turning pain into fuel involves actively working through it rather than allowing it to remain unresolved. Reflection is also essential. Taking time to understand what caused the pain, how it affected you, and what you can learn from it helps transform it into wisdom. Without reflection, Pain remains just an emotional reaction. With reflection, it becomes insight that can guide future decisions. Pain also strengthens empathy. When you have experienced difficulty, you become more understanding of others who are going through similar struggles. This creates emotional depth and connection. Instead of judging others for their struggles, you begin to recognize shared human experiences. This can improve relationships and communication. Another important aspect is perseverance. Pain tests your willingness to continue. It reveals whether your goals are strong enough to withstand difficulty. When you push through pain instead of quitting, you build perseverance. This quality becomes essential for long-term success because meaningful goals always involve challenges. Pain can also reveal hidden strength. Many people underestimate their own capacity until they are forced into difficult situations. It is only through adversity that they discover resilience, determination, and courage they did not know they had. This discovery changes how they approach future challenges. It is also important to recognize that not all pain is equal. Some pain is productive, meaning it leads to growth, learning, or improvement. Other pain is destructive, meaning it drains energy without providing value. Turning pain into fuel means focusing on productive transformation rather than unnecessary suffering. Another key insight is that pain can be redirected but not erased. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. This control is what allows transformation. The same situation that once caused suffering can later become a source of strength and motivation. Over time, as you repeatedly transform pain into action, you begin to build emotional strength. You become less afraid of challenges because you know you can handle them. Pain no longer feels like a threat, but like a signal that something important is happening. This shift changes your relationship with difficulty entirely. Pain also creates urgency. When something hurts deeply, you become more motivated to change your situation. This urgency can be powerful when directed properly. Instead of allowing pain to create despair, you use it to create movement. Ultimately, turning pain into fuel is about ownership. It's about taking responsibility for how you respond to life's difficulties. It is about refusing to let pain define you negatively and instead choosing to let it shape you positively. And when this mindset becomes consistent, pain stops being something you fear and starts becoming something you use. Competing with yourself, not others, is one of the most important mindset shifts you can make if you want long-term growth, peace of mind, and consistent improvement. Most people naturally fall into the habit of comparison. They look at others to measure their progress, their success, and their worth. They see someone ahead of them and feel pressure, insecurity, or even discouragement. Or they see someone behind them and feel temporary superiority. But both of these reactions pull your attention away from what truly matters, your own journey. When you constantly compare yourself to others, your focus shifts outward instead of inward. You begin to measure your life using someone else's timeline, someone else's starting point, someone else's resources, and someone else's struggles that you may not even fully understand. This creates an unfair and often misleading standard. You may feel like you are failing simply because someone else is ahead, even though your path, your pace, and your circumstances are completely different. Competing with others also creates emotional instability. Your confidence rises when you feel ahead and drops when you feel behind. This means your emotional state becomes dependent on external factors you cannot control. Someone else's success can make you feel inadequate, and someone else's failure can make you feel temporarily better. Neither of these states is stable or healthy because they are not rooted in your own progress. When you shift your mindset to competing with yourself, everything changes. Your focus turns inward. Instead of asking, how am I doing compared to them? You start asking, how am I doing compared to who I was yesterday? This is a much more powerful and accurate measure of growth because it is based on your own journey, not someone else's. Self-competition creates clarity. You begin to see your progress more objectively. You notice improvements that you would otherwise overlook if you were focused on others. Small wins become meaningful because they represent personal growth, not comparison-based validation. You stop needing to be better than others and stop focusing on being better than your past self. One of the most powerful aspects of competing with yourself is that it removes unnecessary pressure. When you are trying to outperform others, you are constantly aware of their actions. This creates stress, anxiety, and sometimes even resentment. But when your goal is personal improvement, the pressure becomes internal and constructive. You are no longer racing against people you cannot control. You are working on a version of yourself you can influence. This mindset also builds consistency. When you focus on self-improvement, you are more likely to stay committed over time because your motivation is not dependent on external comparison. You are not waiting to outperform someone else. You are simply trying to improve your own performance. This creates a more stable form of motivation. Another important benefit of competing with yourself is that it encourages patience. Growth becomes a gradual process rather than a race. You understand that improvement takes time and repetition. Instead of expecting instant results because someone else achieved them quickly, you focus on steady progress. This reduces frustration and helps you stay committed even when progress feels slow. Self-competition also strengthens discipline. When your focus is on becoming better than your previous self, you develop habits that support long-term growth. You begin to track your own behavior more closely. You notice when you are improving and when you are slipping. This awareness encourages you to stay consistent, even when motivation is low. Another key advantage is that competing with yourself builds self-awareness. You become more in tune with your strengths and weaknesses. You understand what works for you and what doesn't. This understanding allows you to make better decisions about how to improve. Instead of copying others blindly, you develop strategies that suit your own personality, pace, and goals. Comparison with others often leads to distraction. You start focusing on what others are doing, how fast they are progressing, and what they have achieved. This takes energy away from your own development. You may spend more time observing others than working on yourself. Self-competition eliminates this distraction because your attention remains centered on your own progress. It is important to understand that competing with yourself does not mean ignoring others completely. You can still learn from people around you, get inspired by their achievements, and observe their strategies. The difference is that you do not measure your worth against them. Instead, you use their success as information, not as a benchmark for your self-esteem. One of the biggest traps of comparison is that it ignores context. You do not see the full story behind someone's success or struggle. You see results, but not the effort, sacrifices, failures, or support systems that contributed to those results. When you compare yourself without understanding context, you create unrealistic expectations for yourself. Self-competition removes this distortion. You are working with your own reality, your own history, and your own progress. You know where you started, what you have overcome, and what you are currently working on. This makes your evaluation more accurate and fair. Another important aspect of competing with yourself is that it builds confidence from within. Instead of relying on external validation or comparison-based superiority, your confidence comes from evidence of your own improvement. Each time you see progress in yourself, your confidence grows. This type of confidence is stable because it is based on personal growth, not external ranking. This mindset also reduces jealousy. When you are focused on your own improvement, someone else's success does not threaten you. Instead, it becomes neutral or even inspiring. You are no longer in competition with them, so their achievements do not diminish your value. You begin to understand that there is enough space for everyone to grow at their own pace. Self-competition also encourages long-term thinking. When you are trying to outperform others, you may be tempted to take shortcuts or rush progress to keep up. But when you are focused on personal growth, you are more likely to prioritize sustainable development. You understand that true improvement takes time and cannot be forced. Another important benefit is resilience. When your focus is internal, setbacks are easier to handle. If you are only comparing yourself to others, a setback can feel like falling behind in a race. But if you are comparing yourself to your past self, a setback becomes just a temporary pause in your own journey. It does not define your position relative to others. It simply becomes part of your process. This mindset also fosters gratitude. Instead of constantly feeling like you are not enough because someone else has more, you begin to appreciate your own progress. You recognize how far you have come and what you have already achieved. This creates a healthier emotional state and reduces unnecessary stress. Another powerful aspect of self-competition is that it creates intrinsic motivation. External competition often relies on comparison, recognition, or validation. But self-competition is driven by personal growth. You are motivated by the desire to improve yourself, not by the need to surpass others. This type of motivation is more stable and long-lasting. Over time, competing with yourself leads to mastery because your focus is on continuous improvement. You keep refining your skills, habits, and mindset. You are not distracted by external pressure or comparison. Instead, you are fully engaged in your own development. This consistent effort leads to deep expertise and personal transformation. It is also important to recognize that everyone has a different starting point. Some people begin with advantages, while others start with disadvantages. Comparing yourself to others ignores this reality. Competing with yourself acknowledges it. It focuses on progress relative to your own starting point, which is a much more meaningful measure of success. Ultimately, the goal of life is not to be better than everyone else. It is to become the best version of yourself. That version is unique to you. It cannot be measured against others because it is based on your own potential, your own growth, and your own journey. When you fully embrace self-competition, you free yourself from unnecessary comparison, emotional instability, and external pressure. You gain clarity, focus, and direction. You begin to measure success in terms of personal growth rather than external ranking. And in doing so, you realize that the only person you truly need to outperform is the person you were yesterday. Controlling your thoughts and emotions is one of the most powerful skills you can develop because your inner world directly shapes your outer world. Every decision you make, every action you take, and every reaction you have is influenced by what is happening inside your mind. If your thoughts are scattered, negative, or uncontrolled, your emotions will follow that pattern, and your actions will reflect it. But if you learn to guide your thoughts with awareness and manage your emotions with discipline, you gain a level of control over your life that most people never develop. Most people live reactively. This means they respond to life based on whatever they feel in the moment. If they feel motivated, they act. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel confident, they try. If they feel afraid, they avoid. This creates inconsistency because emotions are constantly changing. No one feels the same way every day, and no one can rely on emotions as a stable foundation for long-term success. Thoughts are the starting point of this process. Every emotion you experience begins with a thought, whether conscious or unconscious. The way you interpret a situation determines how you feel about it. For example, if you think, "I can't do this," you will likely feel discouraged or anxious. But if you think this is challenging, but I can learn, your emotional response will be more positive and constructive. This shows that thoughts are not just passive events. They actively shape your emotional state. One of the biggest challenges people face is that they do not question their thoughts. They accept every thought that enters their mind as truth, even when those thoughts are negative, irrational, or limiting. But thoughts are not facts. They are mental events that can be observed, evaluated, and changed. Learning to step back and examine your thoughts is the first step toward controlling them. Awareness is the foundation of emotional control. You cannot change what you are not aware of. By paying attention to your thought patterns, you begin to notice recurring themes. You may see patterns of self-doubt, fear, criticism, or overthinking. Once you become aware of these patterns, you gain the ability to interrupt them and replace them with more constructive thinking. Emotions are powerful because they create urgency. When you feel something strongly, it pushes you toward action. Fear can make you avoid challenges. Anger can make you react impulsively. Excitement can make you act quickly. While emotions are useful signals, they should not be the sole drivers of your decision. Without control, emotions can lead you in directions that are not aligned with your goals. Controlling emotions does not mean suppressing them. Suppression is dangerous because it pushes emotions underground, where they can build up and eventually surface in unhealthy ways. Control means understanding your emotions, acknowledging them, and choosing how to respond rather than reacting automatically. It is about creating space between feeling and action. That space is where power lies. In that moment of awareness, you have the ability to choose your response. Instead of reacting impulsively, you can pause, reflect, and decide what action aligns with your long-term goals. This ability separates emotional control from emotional chaos. One of the most effective ways to manage emotions is through reframing. Reframing means changing the way you interpret a situation. For example, instead of seeing failure as a reflection of your ability, you can see it as feedback. Instead of seeing discomfort as a threat, you can see it as growth. This shift in interpretation changes the emotional response you experience. Another important tool is self-talk. The way you speak to yourself internally has a direct impact on your emotional state. Negative self-talk reinforces negative emotions, while constructive self-talk helps stabilize and guide your emotion. For example, instead of saying, "I'm overwhelmed and can't handle this," you might say, "This is difficult, but I will take it step by step." This simple shift can change how you feel and how you respond. Emotional control also requires discipline. There will be moments when emotions feel overwhelming. In those moments, it is easy to lose control and act in ways that are not aligned with your goals. Discipline allows you to stay grounded even when emotions are intense. Helps you act based on principle rather than impulse. Another important aspect is understanding triggers. Everyone has emotional triggers, situations, words, or experiences that provoke strong reaction. By identifying your triggers, you can prepare for them and reduce their power over you. Instead of being controlled by them, you become aware of them and choose how to respond. Physical state also influences emotional control. Your body and mind are connected. Lack of sleep, poor nutrition, and fatigue can make it harder to manage emotions. When your physical state is weak, your emotional resilience is also weaker. Taking care of your body supports your ability to maintain mental and emotional stability. Breathing and pause techniques can also help in moments of emotional intensity. When emotions rise quickly, your breathing often becomes shallow or irregular. By consciously slowing your breathing, you signal to your body that you are safe, which helps reduce emotional intensity. This creates space for clearer thinking. Another important element is perspective. When you zoom out and look at situations from a broader viewpoint, emotions often become less overwhelming. Something that feels like a major problem in the moment may appear less significant when viewed in the context of long-term goals. Perspective helps balance emotional reactions. Controlling thoughts and emotions also improves decision-making. When you are not controlled by emotional impulses, you make more rational and thoughtful decisions. You consider consequences, evaluate options, and choose actions that align with your long-term vision rather than short-term feeling. Emotional control also builds resilience. Life will always include challenges, setbacks, and unexpected situations. If you are emotionally unstable, each challenge can feel overwhelming. But if you have emotional control, you are able to navigate difficulties without losing direction. Remain steady even in uncertainty. Another benefit is improved relationships. When you can control your emotions, you are less likely to react impulsively in interactions with others. This reduces conflict and improves communication. You become more patient, understanding, and thoughtful in your responses. It is also important to recognize that emotional control is not about becoming emotionless. Emotions are a natural and valuable part of being human. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to manage them effectively. Emotions provide information, but they should not dictate behavior without reflection. Developing control over thoughts and emotions is a gradual process. It requires practice, patience, and self-awareness. There will be moments when you succeed and moments when you struggle. What matters is consistency and effort. Each time you become aware of your thoughts or pause before reacting emotionally, you strengthen your ability. Over time, this practice changes your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who is in control, someone who responds thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. This identity reinforces your behavior, making emotional control more natural and automatic. You also begin to notice that external situations have less power over you. While you cannot control everything that happens, you can control how you interpret and respond to it. This realization creates a sense of stability and confidence. Ultimately, controlling your thoughts and emotions is about taking ownership of your inner world. It is about recognizing that while you cannot always control external events, you always have the ability to influence your internal response. And in that ability lies true strength, clarity, and direction. Discipline over motivation is one of the most important principles for achieving long-term success because it replaces something unstable with something reliable. Motivation is powerful, but it is temporary. It comes in waves, often triggered by emotions, inspiration, external events, or personal circumstances. One day you feel highly motivated and ready to take on the world, and the next day that energy disappears. If your progress depends on motivation, your progress will always be inconsistent. Discipline, on the other hand, is steady. It is the ability to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel in the moment. It is not driven by emotion, but by commitment. When discipline is present, action becomes consistent even when motivation is absent. This is what separates those who achieve long-term results from those who start strong but stop midway. Most people misunderstand motivation. They believe they need to feel ready before they act. They wait for the right mood, the right energy, or the right inspiration. But this creates a cycle of delay. The more you wait for motivation, the more you train yourself to depend on it. Over time, this dependency becomes a barrier to progress because motivation cannot be controlled or guaranteed. Discipline removes this uncertainty. It creates structure in your behavior. Instead of asking to do, I feel like doing this today, you begin asking, does this need to be done today? This shift in questioning changes your relationship with action. You stop relying on feelings and start relying on principles. One of the key differences between discipline and motivation is consistency. Motivation is inconsistent by nature. It fluctuates based on internal and external factors. Discipline, however, is built through repetition. It is strengthened every time you choose action over avoidance. Each disciplined decision reinforces your ability to stay committed in the future. Discipline also builds identity. When you consistently act in a disciplined way, you begin to see yourself as a disciplined person. This identity becomes powerful because it influences future behavior. You act in alignment with how you see yourself. If you identify as someone who follows through, you are more likely to continue following through even when it is difficult. Motivation often relies on external stimulation. It may come from watching inspiring content, hearing powerful speeches, or experiencing emotional highs. While these moments can be useful for initial inspiration, they are not sustainable. Once the stimulation fades, so does the motivation. Discipline does not require external triggers. It is internally driven and self-sustaining. Another important aspect of discipline is that it reduces decision fatigue. When you rely on motivation, you constantly have to decide whether or not you feel like doing something. This creates mental exhaustion. Discipline removes this constant negotiation. You already know what needs to be done, so you simply do it. Discipline also creates momentum. When you take action consistently, even in small ways, you build a rhythm. This rhythm makes it easier to continue acting. Each disciplined action reinforces the next one. Over time, this creates a flow where action becomes more natural and less dependent on emotional state. One of the biggest challenges people face is the initial resistance to discipline. It is often uncomfortable at first because it requires action, even when you don't feel like it. The mind resists this because it prefers comfort and ease. But overcoming this resistance is where growth begins. Each time you push through discomfort, you strengthen your discipline. Discipline also helps you handle setbacks more effectively. When motivation fades after a failure or difficulty, discipline ensures that you continue moving forward. Instead of stopping because you feel discouraged, you continue because you are committed to your goals. This ability to persist during difficult times is what leads to long-term success. Another important factor is that discipline builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on a commitment, strengthens self-trust. You begin to believe that you can rely on yourself to take action regardless of circumstances. This self-trust becomes a foundation for confidence. Without discipline, self-trust weakens. When you repeatedly break promises to yourself, you begin to doubt your ability to follow through. This doubt affects other areas of your life, making it harder to stay consistent in the future. Discipline also improves focus. When you are disciplined, you are less likely to be distracted by temporary emotions or external influences. You stay committed to your priorities. This focused approach leads to better results because your energy is directed toward meaningful actions rather than scattered across distractions. Another important aspect is that discipline creates freedom. While it may seem restrictive at first, discipline actually gives you more freedom in the long run. When you are disciplined, you gain control over your time, your habits, and your direction. You are not controlled by impulses or external distractions. Instead, you are in charge of your actions. Motivation often creates short bursts of productivity, followed by long periods of inactivity. Discipline creates steady progress. Hear me? Even if the progress is small on a daily basis, it accumulates over time. This accumulation is what leads to significant transformation. Discipline also helps you overcome procrastination. Procrastination often happens when you rely on feelings to guide action. You delay tasks because you don't feel ready or motivated. Discipline removes this delay by focusing on action rather than emotion. You act because it needs to be done, not because you feel like doing it. Another important element is that discipline strengthens resilience. When you consistently act despite difficulty, you develop the ability to handle challenges without giving up. You learn that discomfort is temporary and manageable. This resilience becomes essential for achieving long-term goals. Discipline also improves time management. When you are disciplined, you are more intentional with how you spend your time. You prioritize important tasks and avoid wasting time on distraction. This leads to higher productivity and better use of your energy. It is also important to understand that discipline is not about perfection It is not about never missing a day or never making mistakes. It is about consistency over time. There will be moments when you struggle or fall short, but discipline is about getting back on track rather than quitting. Motivation may help you start something, but discipline is what keeps you going. Many people are able to start because they feel inspired, but very few are able to continue when inspiration fades. This is why discipline is more important than motivation in the long run. Discipline also creates clarity. When you are disciplined, your actions are aligned with your goals. This alignment reduces confusion. It helps you stay focused on what matters. Instead of constantly questioning what you should do next, you already have a structure that guides your behavior. Another benefit of discipline is that it reduces regret. Many people look back on their lives and regret the things they did not do because they lack consistency. Discipline ensures that you take action even when it is difficult, which reduces the chances of long-term regret. Discipline also strengthens mental toughness. It trains your mind to resist short-term impulses in favor of long-term goals. This ability to delay gratification is one of the strongest predictors of success. It allows you to make decisions based on future benefits rather than immediate comfort. Over time, discipline becomes easier. What once felt difficult becomes habitual. Repeated disciplined actions turn into routines, and those routines become part of your identity. You no longer have to force yourself to act. It becomes natural. Ultimately, discipline is the foundation of achievement because it ensures consistency. Without consistency, even the most powerful motivation leads to nothing. With discipline, even small actions repeated over time lead to significant results. And as you continue to choose discipline over motivation, you begin to realize that success is not about how inspired you feel, but about how committed you are to showing up every day, regardless of how you feel. Success is not an event. It is a process that unfolds over time through repeated actions, decisions, and habits. Most people imagine success as a single moment where everything changes suddenly, like a breakthrough, a promotion, a viral achievement, or a major win. While these moments do exist, they are not the foundation of success. They are the result of a long process that is often invisible, quiet, and gradual. The truth is that success is built in layers, and these layers form through consistency, discipline, and persistence. When people only focus on the final result, they often underestimate the journey required to get there. They see the outcome, but not the effort behind it. They see the recognition, but not the sacrifice. They see the achievement, but not the years of preparation, failure, and learning that made it possible. This creates a misunderstanding of what success truly is, and it often leads to frustration when results do not come quickly. The process of success begins with small actions. These actions may seem insignificant at first, but over time, they accumulate. Every skill you develop, every habit you build, and every step you take contributes to your overall progress. The key is not the size of each action, but the consistency with which you perform them. Small actions repeated daily create momentum, and momentum eventually leads to transformation. One of the most important aspects of understanding success as a process is patience. In a world that values instant results, patience has become rare. People want quick outcomes, immediate validation, and fast progress. But meaningful success rarely happens quickly. It requires time for skills to develop, for habits to form, and for opportunities to align. Without patience, before the efforts begin to pay off. Another critical element of the success process is persistence. There will always be obstacles, setbacks, and moments of doubt. These challenges are not signs that you are failing. They are part of the process itself. Persistence is what allows you to continue moving forward despite difficulty. It is the decision to keep going even when progress feels slow or invisible. Many people underestimate the importance of invisible progress. Not all growth is immediately visible. Sometimes you are improving internally, building discipline, developing resilience, gaining knowledge, or strengthening your mindset long before external results appear. This invisible progress is essential because it prepares you for visible success later on. Without it, external success cannot be sustained. Success also requires adaptation. The process is not linear. There will be changes in direction, unexpected challenges, and moments where you need to adjust your approach. Those who succeed are not necessarily those who follow a perfect plan, but those who are willing to adapt while staying committed to their goal. Flexibility within commitment is a powerful combination. Another important aspect is learning from failure. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. Every failure provides information about what does not work. Each mistake brings clarity and experience that contribute to future improvement. People who avoid failure often avoid growth. Those who embrace failure as part of the process accelerate their learning and development. The success process also involves self-awareness. You need to understand your strengths, weaknesses, habits, and tendencies. Self-awareness allows you to make better decisions and adjust your actions effectively. Without it, you may repeat the same mistakes or follow paths that do not align with your goals. Another key factor is environment. The people you surround yourself with, the habits you are exposed to, and the systems you operate in all influence your progress. A supportive environment can accelerate success, while a negative environment can slow it down. Being intentional about your environment is part of the process of building success. Success also requires clarity of direction. Without clarity, effort becomes scattered. You may work hard but not move forward effectively. Clarity ensures that your actions are aligned with your goals. It helps you prioritize what matters and eliminate what does not. The clearer your direction, the more efficient your progress becomes. Another important part of the process is emotional control. Success often involves moments of frustration, doubt, and uncertainty. If you allow emotions to dictate your actions, progress becomes inconsistent. Emotional control allows you to stay steady, make rational decisions, and continue working even when you do not feel motivated. Discipline plays a central role in the success process. It ensures that actions are taken consistently, regardless of mood or circumstances. Without discipline, progress becomes dependent on motivation, which is unreliable. Discipline turns success into a structured process rather than an emotional reaction. Time is another crucial element. Success cannot be rushed because growth takes time. Skills need repetition, habits need reinforcement, and results need accumulation. Time allows effort to compound. What seems slow in the beginning often accelerates later because of accumulated experience and consistency. One of the most misunderstood aspects of success is the idea of overnight achievement. What appears to be sudden success is usually the result of years of unseen effort. People often only see the final stage of someone's journey, not the long preparation that led to it. This misunderstanding can lead to unrealistic expectations and premature quitting. Success also requires sacrifice. Time, comfort, distractions, and short-term pleasures often need to be reduced in order to focus on long-term goals. Sacrifice does not mean suffering. It means prioritizing what matters most over what is easiest in the moment. This ability to delay gratification is essential for meaningful progress. Another important element is self-trust. As you go through the process of success, you must learn to trust yourself to make decisions, handle challenges, and continue moving forward. Self-trust grows through experience. Each time you overcome difficulty, you strengthen your belief in your own abilities. The success process also involves resilience. There will be moments when things do not go as planned. Resilience is the ability to recover from setbacks and continue moving forward without losing direction. It ensures that temporary obstacles do not become permanent stops. Another key aspect is focus. Success requires sustained attention on specific goals over time. Without focus, energy becomes scattered and progress slows down. Focus allows you to direct your effort efficiently and avoid unnecessary distraction. Consistency is perhaps the most important part of the entire process. Success is not built in bursts of effort, but in repeated actions over time. Each consistent action adds to the foundation of success. Over time, these actions compound and create significant results. Another important factor is mindset. The way you think about success influences how you pursue it. A growth-oriented mindset allows you to see challenges as opportunities and setbacks as lessons. A fixed mindset limits progress by creating fear of failure and resistance to change. Success also involves learning continuously. The world is constantly changing, and the ability to learn and adapt is essential. Those who continue to learn improve over time, while those who stop learning stagnate. Learning is a lifelong part of the success process. Another important element is humility. Success requires the ability to stay open to feedback, accept mistakes, and continue improving. Overconfidence can slow progress, while humility allows for growth and adaptation. The process of success is deeply personal. Everyone's journey is different, shaped by unique circumstances, opportunities, and challenges. Comparing your process to others often leads to misunderstanding and frustration. True success is measured by your own growth over time. Ultimately, success is not defined by a single achievement, but by the accumulation of effort, discipline, learning, and persistence. It is the result of showing up consistently, improving gradually, and refusing to quit when things become difficult. And when you understand that success is a process rather than an event, you stop chasing quick results and start building something that lasts.